Let me tell you all a story. This story was told by someone online, and I also heard it from someone else. I'm just passing it along to you, so listen up. So, there was this woman who shared online about her husband cheating on her. Just treat this as a story, don't take it too seriously. Just listen for fun. She said her husband came back to life after dying, which was strange. Her husband, who was a young and strong man, in his 30s or 40s, actually died and then came back to life. Why? One day she suddenly noticed her husband entering the room, and the whole room was extremely cold. It was summer, but the room felt icy cold, just like stepping into a freezer. There was even frost forming on the windows, that kind of frost. When she got to the bedroom, she saw her husband collapsed on the floor, and there was a thin layer of ice covering his lower body. Then, right after that, her husband's He had already stopped breathing, which scared her so much that she didn't know what to do. When a woman encounters something like this, her mind just goes blank. She couldn't even imagine such a scene. It felt like she was dreaming. What should she do at this point? It took her quite a while to recover from the shock, and then she hurriedly called for help. Help arrived soon after. Then everyone else came as well, and after checking, it was confirmed that he had indeed died from hypothermia. He passed away due to hypothermia. At that time, he was immediately taken over there, and after being transported, they still tried emergency resuscitation. However, they couldn't save him. It was already determined to be physical hypothermia. Then, the woman thought of calling his mother. She called her parents-in-law, asking them to come over. When the parents-in-law arrived, they thought she had harmed their son. She felt terribly wronged and was even taken to the police station. At that time, no matter how she tried to defend herself, it was useless. But then, something happened. Her husband's body suddenly went missing. It disappeared from the refrigerated box at the hospital. It was really strange. Less than a day had passed and the body was missing, and this happened right under everyone's eyes. There was no way it could have just walked out unnoticed. When they checked the surveillance footage, they discovered that on camera, he actually walked out of the box himself. After coming out, he glanced around under the surveillance camera, and then he completely disappeared. When he reappeared, more than an hour had passed, and he was seen outside the hospital's main entrance. Yeah, he just suddenly appeared out of nowhere. And the footage from this surveillance camera has been completely sealed off. Specialized personnel from the relevant authorities, those who specifically investigate these kinds of unusual incidents, not ordinary matters, have come down to handle it. Very quickly that same night they arrived. After arriving, they ordered everyone to keep quiet and they sealed off all the surveillance footage that had been recorded, taking it away. They also interrogated her husband. As for the woman, when she heard about this incident at the station, she thought her husband had left, and she herself was inexplicably being wronged and blamed for something she didn't do. She was already feeling upset, and then, at the station, they told her, "You can go home now, your husband has already returned home." In a daze, she wandered back home. When she got home, she saw that her husband was indeed there, and her parents-in-law were there too. At that moment, she went crazy, rushed over to shake her husband, demanding to know what was going on, telling him to explain clearly, asking why all this had happened. What happened? As for her husband, he started to tell her what had happened. It turned out there was a reason behind all of this. She said it was a long story and began to recount what had happened to her husband before. Her husband had previously lent money to a friend, but that friend couldn't pay the money back, just couldn't repay it. So the couple went to that friend's house to make a scene and demand the money back. After being unable to repay the debt, the friend gave the couple a family heirloom box as collateral. He said this heirloom box had been passed down since the Guangxu period of the Qing dynasty. Inside the box was a piece of material that looked like jade but wasn't quite jade, more like crystal but not exactly crystal. It felt cool to the touch, and there was a carving on it that resembled a human figure. After the couple brought it home, since they couldn't get their money back and didn't know whether the item was genuine or not, they just took it home anyway. But once it was at their house, strange things started happening frequently. What kind of strange things? Her husband, in a daze, would see some inexplicable people who looked very odd, almost like ice sculptures. They had limbs and heads, but the heads didn't look human at all. The limbs also looked a bit strange. They resembled animals, but not quite. They walked upright. He would often see these things in a daze, but his wife couldn't see them at all. Then, after some time, the man who owed them money, that is his friend's father, came over and said, "Hey, you took my family heirloom without my permission. Even though my son owes you money, I don't. You'd better return the heirloom to me." But of course, the couple refused. The two of them started arguing and pulling the box back and forth. In the process, the family heirloom, the box, fell to the ground with a bang and popped open. When it opened, that thing inside fell to the ground and shattered instantly. What a pity. After it broke, a liquid started to flow out from inside. That liquid looked kind of like mercury. Then her husband accidentally got some on his hand. Right at the moment, it shattered. The temperature in the whole house dropped significantly, and then his friend's father saw that it was broken and realized there was nothing he could do, so he left angrily. After he left, the couple gathered the broken pieces and put them in a box, thinking that since it was shattered, they'd just store it in the box for now. A couple of days later, her husband had that incident. He passed away unexpectedly, becoming like a patient in a frozen shell. But then, that same afternoon, he came back to life. Afterwards, her husband said that when he was taken to the hospital, he was actually conscious. But he couldn't move at all. Even when they were doing things to him, like pressing on him or taking measurements, he could still feel everything. However, he had already been declared dead. He was suffering inside, wanting to shout but unable to make a sound. Suddenly, a beam of light shone on him, and inexplicably, he was able to move again. After he started moving, he immediately disappeared into the light. He felt like he entered a room, and the entire room was made of ice sculptures. Then, from within this ice-sculpted room, there were no doors. A few people made of ice walked out from the ice itself. These ice people were the same figures he had vaguely seen before in his hazy consciousness. These people looked very strange, and now he could see them clearly. They were completely like ice sculptures, resembling humans but not quite human. Their limbs were upright as they walked, but they couldn't speak, and their eyes looked very odd. A beam of light shot out from their eyes, a pale pink light that entered his mind. Right after that, he was able to hear those ice people speaking. He could understand what they were saying to him. Only then did he realize that those ice people, their language system wasn't communicated through sound, but rather through consciousness and light. So, by using their gaze to inject that pale pink light into her husband's mind, her husband was able to hear them. They said, "Don't be afraid. Please don't be afraid. We absolutely did not bring you here to cause you any harm. Yes, there are some very important things that, because you have now awakened and fully absorbed the mysterious seed that we have carefully passed down through generations. What kind of extraordinary seed is this?" Then, the patient immediately started to talk, saying that they had lived on the planet Earth 900 million long years ago, specifically during the ancient and vast Ice Age. An icy world. At that time, the entire Earth was covered by layers of ice. They were the beings and products within those ice layers, and they already possessed highly advanced technology and biological techniques of a very high dimension. However, after countless years, no one knows how many tens of thousands of years, Earth's ecosystem suddenly began to warm up. The moon appeared, and the sun grew hotter and hotter. In the past, he said, you couldn't see the sun from Earth. It was very far away and not nearly as large. Later, the sun became much bigger and the moon arrived as well. At this point, Earth's environment changed and was no longer suitable for them to survive. So they soon moved away to another planet. They traveled through tunnels using a method that compresses physical space to pass through, not like the spaceships we think of today. For example, when we launch a rocket, it would take tens of thousands of light years to reach Mars or Pluto. Instead, they use space folding and physical traversal to get to their destination. After they left behind seeds on Earth, genetic seeds to be precise. These seeds also contained informational energy, something that could connect with Earth. Before they departed, a small number of their people remained on Earth to maintain a connection with those who had left. If one day the environment on Earth improves, they can use these informational energy seeds to initiate contact. They would send out a signal, and once the others received it, they would return to continue living here. If the environment still wasn't suitable, then they would take these remaining people and leave for the other place. That's why these seeds were left behind, preserved in the glaciers. So how did humans end up digging these out? It happened during the late Qing dynasty, and it was actually the ancestors of this friend who owed a debt. While mining deep in the mountains, they accidentally caused a collapse. It turned out that the mountain was hollow inside, and within it there was something like a glacier. Everyone could see it. If you've watched a lot of videos online, you'll see some people exploring those caves in the mountains. Even though it's really hot outside, they discover that there are actually glaciers inside the caves. In that kind of environment, they found a pretty large spherical object. When they went over to pick it up, they accidentally dropped it and it broke open. Inside, there was a rectangular object, the one with the figure inside. In the end, he thought this was something really special, definitely a valuable item, so he kept it and passed it down as a family heirloom. But actually, this thing was a transmission seed containing the informational energy left behind by their patient at that time. As a result, this object was passed down as a family heirloom by this friend's ancestor, and then the space folded over again. So what happened after that? It turned out that the seed had already been damaged and absorbed by humans, which is why they summoned her husband into their world, into that space, to tell her not to be afraid of them. They were just taking back what belonged to them and explaining why they were doing this. Then they extracted the thing from her body. How did they do it? They gave her something to drink, and immediately after, her body started to emit tiny beads, like sweating, and the beads began to condense, forming a kind of frosty, icy substance. Then, as it solidified together, they collected it and took it away. After they left, her husband's body returned to normal and they sent him back. In full view of everyone, right at the entrance of the hospital, he suddenly appeared, and someone caught it on surveillance. Fortunately, there weren't many people around at that time because it was already at the palace. In that remote corner. And then the video was taken away by the authorities, but whether it's real or not, nobody knows.